Hi, everyone. This is our final meeting about the design aspirations, ASU's 9 design aspirations, and how our work aligns with that collectively. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So this is the third meeting that we had. I think we started this last spring was design aspirations 1, 2, and 3, and then the fall we did 4, 5, and 6, and now the spring we're ending with 6, or sorry, 7, 8, and 9. Okay, so this whole document, I think it's 73 slides. Now, we're not going to go through all 73 slides today, but it goes through everything in terms of how we have framed our work around the 9 design aspirations. We are those who have responded to 3 rounds of different survey instruments that I'm assuming you all are here, so you're taking interest in this, and you've probably already submitted your responses to at least one of those rounds. Okay, so here are the design aspirations. Just as a refresher, I think most of us almost know these by heart. We know what they are. I think we all have familiarity or deep familiarity with these. And tell me to slow down or anything if I'm going too quickly. Okay. Oh, interesting. Okay, so here's some of I have to move you up above there. Okay, good. Here, thank you to the participants. We had open-ended survey instruments. So we had 3 rounds, like I said, for design aspirations 1 to 3, 4 to 6, and 7 to 9. Round 1, we had 48 respondents of about 214 faculty. I kept the denominator the same all 3 rounds just because, give or take, we lose people and we hire people and so forth. So we had about a 24% response rate round 1. Round 2, we had 33 people respond, and we dropped down to 16.5%. And then we dropped more, which is fine. I think that's to be expected, that type of attrition. Round 3, so this round, we had 28 respondents, which is about 13% of people of our whole college. So, of course, we all know we're all methodologists. We know we're not talking about generalization. We are just talking about what the respondents had to say in terms of how we collectively might think about how our work aligns with these design aspirations. Some people responded, participants only had to respond to one, but there were some people who would respond to 2 or 3 just because they would get into it. There were no substantive responses to the if there's anything else you'd like to add. So we're not even doing anything with those. I organized the data just like I have the other 2 rounds around scholarship, teaching, and service, and crosses and responses crossed over. So people would say, I see this design aspiration in scholarship, teaching, and service. And so, or how they defined it. And so it was appropriately complicated. And so I made sure to map all those things on with all the crossovers as best I could. I kept true to how the respondents classified their responses per how they had categories that they had selected in the survey instrument. I used AI, specifically ChatGPT EDU, which is ASU's ChatGPT sponsored AI tool. And okay, there we go. I got to be careful with my mouse. So created 50-ish word value-based summaries, and then lists of examples per area, which you'll see. I protected respondent identities because oftentimes people wrote about their particular work or their articles or their chapters or a grant. And so I removed most of that just to keep us more general and not identifiable. And then I balanced between the specific and the general as best I could. So this is the first set of results, and I'm going to ask you all to raise your hand and see what trends you see in this bar chart or column chart. So you see the 9 design aspirations to the left, and then you see the 9 on the x-axis at the bottom, and then you see the number of respondents on the y-axis, on the vertical axis, and then you can see the scholarship is the maroon, teaching is the orange, service is the yellow, and then the total is the one that's black and white striped. So what do we see in terms of how people believe that their work aligns with the design aspirations? This is the interactive part of the presentation, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, Kathleen.
I'm noticing that leveraging our place is the least um, engaged or reported engaged design aspiration, which I think is really interesting because one, there's so much place-based work that has been done in terms of borderlands and space in the Southwest. And two, I think Arizona is a pretty unique space for a lot of reasons. So it just makes me wonder about that.
Hi, sorry for joining late.
Hi, Veta.
Hey. So also interesting, transform society is also fairly low.
Yeah.
Number three,
Hmm.
very strange compared to the role of education in transforming societies.
Yeah, right. Well, it's all relative too. And we do have, I mean, you missed the slide before. We have varying response rates with response rates declining over time.
Mm,
So that, we have to read this with that, that in mind as well.
yeah.
Anything else?
This is Carmen Johnson. I see for number two, enabling student success. The highest is for teaching, but the lowest in that is for scholarship across the board.
Yeah, that's it. That's an interesting juxtaposition, isn't it?
Hmm.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a lot of interesting things like the fusing intellectual disciplines for in terms of service is so low, so the principle of innovation, that's ours. That's the one from our college. And it looks like it's about average, maybe a little bit above average in terms of how people see that they align their work with this. Any other comments or questions on this one before we proceed? Okay, so this is the first one, which we're not going to go through. So now I've got to scroll quickly ahead. This is going to be I'm going to have to do this. I'm going to have to stop sharing. Hold on to get to slide 48. Okay, so these are the last three design aspirations. And so, as we've done in the past, I'm going to go through these slides. I'm going to give you all a chance to read on your own. And then we can discuss well, probably after each design aspiration. And so we'll begin. So for conduct use inspired research, so this maps onto the column chart that we just looked at. We had 17 people out of the 28 who responded this round, about 67%, 60.7%, with 7,229 words entered for this particular design aspiration. And here you can see the scholarship summary. And so this is what these respondents, these 17 people had to say, how we collectively as a group, even though we've got a participant bias here, um, define our scholarship as per this design aspiration. So go ahead and read that. And then we'll go to the examples that people submitted and I collated. Okay, I'm going to go ahead if that's okay with everybody. Yeah? All right. Okay, so here's the teaching folks. 13 people responded that they saw that their teaching objectives, goals, practices, behaviors aligned with this design aspiration. So this is the summary. And I will go to the examples that people submitted. Okay, I'm going to move forward. And the last one is going to be service. 14 people responded. This is the summary. And these are the examples of how people thought that service aligned with this aspiration. Okay, before we proceed to the next design aspiration, does anybody have any comments or questions?
Hey, Audrey, this is Juliet.
Yeah.
One of the things I guess I would mention, and you would probably, and those folks that have been around the college for, a number of years or even decades, would probably agree, use-inspired research has been with us for a very long time. And that's primarily the reason that I think it resonates so strongly with our college, even more than some of the other design aspirations, is that it really predates even the idea of design aspirations. And so I'm not surprised to see these responses that are sort of coalescing around use-inspired research because it's been with us for a long time, and I think it's something we really prize in our unit. And I think even principled innovation to me seems like an outgrowth of use-inspired research. So I guess that's just my commentary on it. I feel very strongly about use-inspired research, and I think it's been in our college for a very, very long time. And I think I'm pleased to see that it continues to be held in such high regard.
Yeah, thank you, Julia. I agree with you entirely. I mean, my personal favorite design aspiration is this one, number 7. So this is the one that inspires me, and I'm with you. It inspired me before we actually had official design aspirations. I wouldn't do the work that I do unless it was youth inspired. And I think a lot of us are like that, and a lot of us enjoy being working at ASU because we value this type of work. And even on and Jeannie can speak to this too, even on the University Personnel Tenure Committee, the UPTC is the acronym. We talk about all the design aspirations, but it's really interesting to see when some cases aren't traditionally strong or whatever. We go to the design aspirations and we'll say, but this is mapped onto, like for this case, design aspiration 7 or design aspiration 4. Like it's a really, really useful framework that goes all the way. Well, we'll talk about it later in terms of the implications of this work for our governance documents, but it really goes all the way from the way that we frame our work when we go out for promotion and review at the college level, sometimes even annual reviews, the way that the internal grants are operating this year, especially, and we'll talk about that later. And then the evaluations of our supervisors, and then all the way up to the university, to the provost, and to the president's level. So, yeah, I clearly I'm inspired by your inspired comment. Anyone else?
Well, and I agree with Audrey. I don't remember it like I think it was just something we discussed about all cases that when there was somebody that was conducting research that kind of mapped onto that design aspiration, it was discussed and noted and valued within the committee, regardless of, regardless of the kind of strength of the case. I think it was just something that, you know, the committee was very attentive to.
And it's cool when, and full professors are the ones that are allowed to serve on that committee. And so there are full professors here who have not yet served, but probably should. It's really cool to see how these design aspirations actually apply to disciplines outside of ours too. And so music and art and engineering. And so it's really fascinating work because you get to understand better what colleagues across the university are doing, also in line with the design aspirations. So any other comments or questions? Okay, we'll continue. So the next design aspiration is 8, engage globally. ASU engages with people and issues locally, nationally, and internationally. So here we had 18 of the 28 people respond, yielding 5,438 words. So here's how people felt that this aspiration aligned with their scholarship. 11 people responded to this. Go to the examples. Okay, I'm going to move forward to teaching. Same design aspiration. 13 people. Here are the examples. I'm going to move on to service, summary, and the examples. Okay, before we proceed to the final 9th design aspiration, anybody have any comments or questions?
I guess I maybe just have one comment. This is Kathleen again.
Sure.
There is a particular group within the college that's focused on global engagement. I know Yvette, your meeting today. I wonder if there are any other of these design aspirations that that anyone knows that groups of faculty and staff are working on in a more concentrated fashion, like Design Aspiration 8. I know that global engagement was a priority of the president's office based on some of the analysis of world and national standings around sustainability. I might be getting some of the details wrong on that, but I remember a meeting about a year ago or so that Yvette led in Payne regarding that. And I just wondered if, yeah, there's a community practice for PI. Yeah, so I just wondered if we could map a little bit, or if anyone would share what ad hoc or groups are working on any of these, if any. So there's PI, there's global engagement.
Yeah, well, we have 4 working groups with about maybe a total of 35 faculty members that
Mhm.
work on curriculum internationalization, research internationalization, international partnerships, and student and faculty mobility. But of course, in addition to this, like you say, we have different units that have their own kind of maybe angles and strategic approaches to global engagement as well. So, for example, Carmen already mentioned PI,
Yeah.
but Next Education Workforce have their own person exploring global opportunities. The Educator Learning Hub, Gina, has, I think, a person that exploring global opportunities as well. But I would be curious to hear more, of course.
The reason I'm saying that is I'm just wondering whether there are data being collected in other spaces. And Audrey, I'm not trying to undermine this process. I just wonder because the response rate is lower, if you
Mhm.
needed anything more from faculty at this point, as you're all putting things together for the president's office and whatever other functions this has in terms of external, outward facing reporting, if there may be other data information that's being collected by some of these like ad hoc or whatever groups that may be useful.
Well, Audrey, and we did include similar questions, right, in the surveys that we were doing as part of the global engagement group.
Hmm.
So we can definitely look at those as well because we had a much higher response rate there. I think we had maybe 160 people who responded.
And that's from within the college?
Yeah.
Yeah. And did you ask them about design aspirations
I
in the
think that we included it because remember we ran that survey by you as well.
I don't remember.
No, and I
I'm
think we actually included a parallel question on that as well. So I will go back to the data to look
okay. I
exactly
like
what we
yeah.
included.
I like many others, and that's contributing to the low response rates across all survey research studies right now. I'm like it's like death by survey. So yeah. And with
Mm-hmm.
all my student surveys, I forget how which survey is coming and which survey is going, quite honestly. So yeah. Yeah, the response rate is clearly an issue. I mean, honestly, if we were being true purists in a statisticians, what a statistician would say would be that we have the significantly low response rate, too low to do any kind of generalization for anything, right? And so we're looking for a 70% minimum, and we're significantly below that, especially I think 24% was the first. I forget what the first, I was on the second slide or something like that. So we have to keep all this in context. And yes, so Kathleen, you said this going to the university. I don't see that happening because we have too many issues. I think we probably should keep it internal. If the university thought that this was cool or something, then we could try again with their support, but we'd really have to work on response rates and like captive audiences or however we would get that right the next time. Yeah. Any other questions or comments? Okay, so we're going to go to the last design aspiration, which is 9, practice principled innovation. This is ours, right? ASU places character and values at the center of decisions and actions. 17 people out of the 28 responded to this. 5,840 words total were collected. And here's the summary from 11. Okay, here are the examples from scholarship. Okay, go on to teaching. 13 people. And the examples. Go to service, 13, and the examples. Okay, any comments or questions about principled innovation?
Just a comment related to my last one, which is the group that was referred to, see, by one of the members, by Carmen, that the Division for Educator Preparation has an affinity group focused on PI. It's meeting with the monthly faculty during the monthly faculty meetings, and I know they're going to continue to meet next year as well. So we're really trying to integrate PI more explicitly throughout our that division and with teaching and research in particular. So, I mean, I don't know what the plan is, I mean, for next year, if there's any trends you're going to be looking at with the limited data we have, but it would be cool to see if there are any connections.
Yeah, it's interesting because even when I think about the internal grants that are happening right now, so we have four priority areas. One is early career faculty. One is some like a grant that moves the college forward in some way. But the other two priorities are the design aspirations and the LFCs, the Learning Future Collaboratives. And when I was drafting the RFP for internal grants, I was curious how the design aspirations and the LFCs mapped onto each other because I think we could probably do an even better job of getting the LFCs aligned with the design aspirations. Because to your point, if we had that alignment, not only would it be good for us as a college in as situated within the university, but in terms of everything that we do. And what we could do is take this first draft, this first attempt at doing this, and submit them to the LFCs themselves to continue to build these up and make them actually representative of our beliefs, right? So these belief statements are our beliefs based on these samples that we have. So um, I don't know if anyone has any thoughts on that, but
Hey, Audrey, this is Juliet.
yeah.
Just a sort of a comment and question. Because this is being or has been adopted university wide, I'm just curious about if you have any perspective about how it's been received university wide, how it's being implemented, what it looks like. I'm just curious about, broader interpretation because, we know the history of principled innovation was around character ed, and it sort of evolved. And I'm still seeing, I still bristle with this one. I'll just be completely transparent. It's not that I don't think it's important. I think it's still under evolution. So I see terms like, I think I saw the term moral there, and I saw the term democratic. And so, we start dovetailing into some interesting areas with principled innovation. So I'll just be completely transparent. I haven't really landed yet with how I'm, understanding principled innovation and its application. I can read through and say, yes, okay, I can see this makes sense, but even within our field of special ed, we really are wrangling with ideas around, even looking at compliance-driven practices and then IEPs. Well, that's the law and the mechanism we have so kids get services. So, there's a lot of contention around a lot of this terminology. And so I'm just curious in terms of the broader university, if you have perspective about how principled innovation has been understood, applied, what impact it's having, because I almost feel like that could be instructive to my understanding. And maybe a broader application in my own work if I could understand a little bit more about it.
I completely agree with you, Juliet. This is my least favorite because I don't understand it. But I will say, going through all of the data for this PowerPoint and like reading through all the responses, it was really, really helpful because every time I see the aspiration, I'm like, I don't know what that means. Pass next, like. And so now going through this, like reading especially the summaries in each of the three areas, I'm like, okay, I'm starting to get a little bit of a better idea of how we're defining it. But I know its history as well. I saw the same terms that you did, and I was like, okay, its roots are still grounded, right? And oh, to your question about what the university, I have no idea. And I don't know if anyone here on the meeting does. Jeannie, you were on the UPTC more recently than I was. Were you all talking about this design aspiration and how like people's in terms of their files and how they aligned with it?
I mean, I don't remember, it didn't stand out to me in the meeting. So, I mean, we talked about a lot of stuff, because
Yeah.
there are so many files you review that, you know. But I will say that I am participating in the humanities lab. They have a grant from Wake Forest University, and it's called Cultivating Civic Virtue Through Action. And and so some of these same issues are coming up in there, and we're talking a lot about like kind of character and principled innovation, and Christy came back to like kind of talk to the group. And so they have communities of practice around. I'm in the third one. And then we're all supposed to kind of incorporate the ideas into our humanities labs, which mine won't be for a while. So can I have so I'm not teaching one until the spring. So I'm deferring thought on that until later this year. So
Okay. Yeah. And yeah, so and we are going to, there is a slide in terms of questions and moving forward. So I think that also applies to this conversation and what we might do. I mean, I would, if I was President Crow, I think I would be interested to see what our college did because as far as I know, no other colleges have even began this type of exercise. And while we're not finished, it's a pretty decent beginning, like I would love to see how all 24 or 22, whatever we have, colleges and schools, how they're interpreting this in their own context. And so maybe we can move it up to Carol. Maybe Carol moves it up to President Crow. I have on that note, I've got this PowerPoint, which you all have access to, and you can bookmark it and read it on the weekend if you'd like. And then I have it downloaded. Then I have a whole PDF file with like an abstract and introduction that I worked on. So we could send something like that to Carol, and that has all the raw data in it too, like pretty much part of appendices. And so, and anyone has access to that because everything's blinded or not blinded, anonymized. And so people could do their own types of analyses with whatever. The data corpus is huge. I think the PDF document's like 130 pages of information from all 9 aspirations. So, any other questions or comment? Go ahead, Juliet.
I will say I concluded a service on the University Senate last year, and this did come up. Presentations were even done on principled innovation. So it was very exciting to see our college being foregrounded in this way, university wide. It's definitely commendable to Carol and her work on this design aspiration because it definitely has gained ground. But I didn't get a sense of its application just yet. It was more in sort of the beginning stages of, here this is, and folks around the university, let's start considering this and how does this align with our work? And there were some presentations, but then my service on the Senate, the University Senate concluded. And so I was just wondering, maybe hence, since then, if there had been any, additional kind of information in terms of university-wide, the application of PI, and if that might be instructive for us, if for no other reason to showcase how the work that our college has done in this regard is having broader application across the university.
Sure. I think that's a great point. And Jeannie and Sarup and I will meet, I think it's on Tuesday this week. We meet once a week. And so we'll be talking about all these comments during that meeting and the comments forthcoming in terms of what you all think the next steps should also be. So thank you.
I just have a brief comment, and it just goes back to Juliet, because we sort of share the same background coming from special ed. When we talked about these aspirations the very first time, and saw these words, use inspired this, engage globally, this, we just were stuck with what does this mean? And there were like 9 of those things, very limited information, not having real good definition about these things. And I think what, at least in my case, what I have seen with this kind of work is how each one of us was able to look at these different terms and they were able to all redefine, their work aligning with this thing. And it took me a while to also think, see how my work actually aligns with, 3 of the 9 of these aspirations. And I think it made it more palatable for me. I was able to understand these concepts a lot more than I was at the time when I was given this charge of, we got to just align ourselves to these design aspirations. So it was a challenge at that time. And similar to that, we encountered similar kind of conversations when we were talking about the awards, and we were aligning the awards to these kind of aspirations. I think, and now it just kind of gives us like, okay, it fits right here. I mean, it's just, so I agree with you, Juliet. It's a starting point. it hasn't, it sort of is sort of evolving. I think we're sort of learning from it, but it has definitely helped me learn a little bit more than I did at the time when I was given the charge.
I also wonder if like sometimes it might be like as Sarup said, it might be hard to like kind of envision how your work fits in. But like if we think about this as a pilot, maybe some of these examples might jog people's not memory, but kind of be like, "Oh yeah, I hadn't thought of it that way, but my work, I think of my, similarly of my work." And so that might be a way to help people so some of these ideas might be ways to help people connect better to the design aspirations if they do seem really abstract to some folks.
Yeah, and even that document, the PDF that I just mentioned, the 120 whatever 30 pager, because all the raw data are in there. Some people went to extreme, a lot of writing. You could tell that they were really thinking about how they were operationalizing it in their own mind. And so the raw data actually is not anonymized because if you were in there, I mean, and a Teresa tattoo is normally here, but this time she's missing, but clearly she was one of the respondents because she had her names and publications and she had her inspirations and all these things all over the place. And so we probably have to talk about whether that would be something that we could put on the hub because to Jeannie's point, like if someone's struggling with something, if they went into that document, then they could see all the raw data of how people were operationalizing that in terms of their own work and their own work in terms of scholarship, teaching, and service. And so I do think it has a lot of value potentially, even though, to your point also, Jeannie, that we can treat it more of a pilot and see what we're going to do with it hereafter.
So I guess the other thing I would say, just to go back to Juliet's point about PI, we actually had quite a few nominations for the group PI award for the faculty recognition awards. So people, I guess, do see their work kind of in that light.
That's cool. That's good. Sarup?
Oh no, I was sort of reminiscing on some of the things that I have recently seen, in this upcoming ASU GSV summit that is going to be happening in San Diego the second week of April. Um, I was approached with one of the topics which I didn't know how to handle, but then I think this is a great example for me now how we handle this information. And the topic was character, connection, and cognition. And I was just looking at my work and seeing how all the stuff that I've done the last 25 years would fit into these different kinds of frameworks that might be emerging from these constructs. So it was pushing me to think, beyond what I know. And now I have to sort of think about this as a connecting theme and, sort of see about how we can promote success of students and educators connecting these thoughts. So I think these kind of exercises help us in terms of looking at, various ways of how people are defining and examining these kind of constructs. So it was just I was reminiscing on some of that kind of stuff as we were talking.
Okay, so we'll go on to the final slides. So here are the overarching findings, and I'll just let you read these like we've done in the past. There's 10 total, so this is the first five. Okay, I'll go to the next five. So there it is, 127 pages. That's the full document, the PDF, 54 plus thousand words. That's the abstract, which we don't have to read necessarily. If you have the link, you can read that later. So that's the final slide, pretty much. Questions, next steps. What do we do with this? Implications for college, Dean Basil, implications for governance. A while ago, I think it was after the first round, we were talking about maybe adding this as an appendix to the promotion criteria. And so people could see like, not necessarily the 127 page document, but the stuff that you're seeing today, like the Cliff Note version of everything, the summaries. But I think that's still premature also because the sampling issues and so forth. And so one idea that I've had is we could still put this stuff up onto the hub, the PowerPoint presentation and then the PDF that I mentioned before. We could, you know, there might be implications for, I don't know about governance yet. Um, any ideas on any of this beyond what we've already contributed?
Well, one of the things that we're working on is trying to align the faculty recognition awards with the design aspirations. So maybe putting this with that, because we've now kind of changed the hub so that it has the new awards listed. Maybe the document itself might help people, like as they're thinking about awards, kind of jog their thinking about, kind of what might be relevant, and to help them with their nominations of either them self-nominations or other people.
Yeah, sure. It's a great idea.
Going back to your earlier point, Audrey, about just kind of alignment across initiatives of the college. It's a super important point. How all of these, I mean, we have quite a few frameworks and ways of defining our work sort of categorically. And I think there definitely are opportunities to strengthen the connections between them. Mhm.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate that, Kathleen. That's definitely something that we will talk about too. Moving.
Yeah. And my wheels are spinning around the LFCs. Admittedly, it's not something that I've spent really more than 2 minutes thinking about in terms of the alignment across this particular across the design aspirations, because there are other things we're aligning in relation to new and existing ways of talking about our work. Look
Yeah,
at the mission and look at knowledge entrepreneurship and etc. Yeah. So
I'm self-diagnosed OCD, and so I love it. I get personal pleasure when I see things aligned and fit into frameworks and
I
parallel
I do
structures.
too. I love a good schema. Yeah. And a good heuristic. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so that's it. Of course, you can reach out to me at any time, Sarup at any time. Also, if you want early access to the PDF, I'm happy to share it. But you have the PowerPoint yourselves. So the only other reminder that I had, Sarup, I'll let you end after this if you have any other comments or things that you need to mention on behalf of the college. But the internal grants are due coming up here Wednesday, April 8th. I think that is next Wednesday at midnight. So we hope to see your applications in for internal grants. And that is it. Sarup, do you have any last? Thank you. Yeah. Do you have
No,
any last
no,
things to add?
basically, I just want to thank you, Audrey, for actually taking this upon yourself and doing this analysis. And I know you've extended the timeline for people to provide, them more time to finish up the stuff. So I appreciate that. Um, and I encourage everybody to sort of, come on Friday. We have another one coming up on April 3rd, and we'd love to see you there. We would also be sending out information, sort of summarizing different kinds of just-in hours that we have done this year. We would be doing about 25 or so this year by the end of April, and would like to seek your input about different topics, and people who could do it would be willing to facilitate and so forth. So just keep an eye on it.
All right. Well, great. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone.